on your chair, and so it's going to be a crucial part of the presentation, and so you can pick it up. It says Muslim Day Parade, and then throughout the presentation we'll just follow along. So as I mentioned before, I have been banned on every single social media platform. This is the tweet that I was banned for criticizing Ilhan Omar. You can see, isn't it ironic how the Twitter moment used to celebrate women, LGBTQ, and minorities is a picture of Ilhan Omar. Ilhan is pro-Sharia, Ilhan is pro-FGM, that stands for female genital mutilation. Under Sharia, homosexuals are oppressed and killed, women are abused and forced to wear the hijab. Ilhan is anti-Jewish. So as you can see, everything in this tweet is 100% factual, yet I was labeled as a bigot and a racist and banned for hate speech. And why am I telling you that? Well, I'm sure you all saw the front page of the newspaper in Rochester that said a conspiracist who spreads anti-Muslim bigotry was coming to your town. Well, it's not anti-Muslim, right? It's true. Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi even told Ilhan Omar she needed to apologize for her anti-Jewish statements, right? We have seen that Ilhan Omar has made disparaging remarks about homosexuals. She often fundraises with an organization called the Council on American Islamic Relations, and one of their key fundraisers is a guy named Siraj Wahhaj, who has called for the killing of gays. And why am I telling you this? Well, if they're going to label me as a hater and a racist, and they're going to target me and ban me to the point where even my own bank is shutting me down, they're going to do it to you. And this is why this information that I'm going to be sharing with you all today is so important, is because we're no longer in a time in this country where people can just accept political differences. We're no longer at a time in this country where people can respect the First Amendment rights granted to all of us in the Constitution. We are living in a time where if you do not agree with the radical left-wing agenda spewed by some of the most toxic members in our government, right? If you do not agree with the radical left-wing agenda that has been adopted by the heads and executives of all of these social media companies, like Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they're all Democrat, in case you were wondering, then you're gonna get banned. You're gonna get shut down, and they're gonna target your businesses and your livelihood until you're silenced completely or until you comply. Banned from Uber and Lyft, right? Banned from Facebook. And then earlier this year, the Wall Street Journal reported that CARE, the Council on American Islamic Relations, lobbied to ban me. Right? This is the woman who lobbied Twitter to ban me. Her name is Zara Bilhu. She works for CARE, and she's a self-admitted jihadist. Banned from PayPal. PayPal was 90% of my income, all right? And then you can see Chase Bank. So it's not a conspiracy. So already, within the first 2 minutes of me talking to you, right, we've already set aside that your media here is fake news, right? They said that I'm a conspiracist, but I just showed you the news reports. It's well documented. This isn't a conspiracy. This is very real. And, you know, the rise of Islam in this country and the threat a lot of these Islamic values pose, especially Sharia law, is starting to creep throughout the United States, right? It's now present in the halls of Congress. Your lovely representative, Ilhan Omar, has made that very apparent, right? So it's important for people to understand where this can lead to. And I'm telling you what has happened to me so that throughout the rest of this presentation and the information that I'm giving you, you can take it in and realize that for people who don't understand the information you all are going to learn about today, you know, it's going to be very scary. It's going to have very negative implications. We are in a very bad time in our country right now. President Trump might be president, but it's only going to get worse. The Democrats and the tech companies, the social media companies are only going to increase their attacks on all of us, the banking institutions, okay? And that's why I'm sharing this information. Facebook last week, You're going to think this is unbelievable, but in May, they banned me on May 2nd, 2019, and they labeled me as a dangerous individual, all right? And according to Facebook standards, a dangerous individual is somebody who commits mass murder, somebody who promotes violence, or somebody who is a terrorist. Well, I'm neither of those things, yet I was branded as a dangerous individual simply because I'm an effective Trump supporter. And every single mainstream media outlet, okay, said on TV with my picture next to people like Louis Farrakhan, Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson, they said that I was a dangerous person. So not only have I been silenced in America as a journalist, I'm 26 years old, mind you, I've had my livelihood taken from me because they shut down my source of income. They have completely defamed me and smeared me and accused people that I'm some sort of conspiracy theorist or domestic terrorist. And why did they do this? They only did this because I came to Minnesota last year and dared to report the truth about Ilhan Omar and Keith Ellison. And because of that, I not only have a fatwa issued on me by the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas, but also by Facebook themselves. If you want to see this highlighted section right here, it's hard for you to read because of the resolution, but it says you're not allowed to post death threats against people. Well, this highlighted section says do not post unless these people are branded as dangerous individuals. So this is going to be unbelievable for people to think, but you have a multi-billion-dollar social media company saying it's okay for people to murder me and other people who they have branded as a dangerous individual because they have decided with their team and employees who are all left-wingers and anti-Trump individuals that I'm a dangerous person. Right? I just want you to understand how serious and how dangerous this now is. And I know a lot of you, raise your hand if you have been censored on social media. Right? So most of you have been censored. And this is how bad it can be, right? It doesn't just end with a 30-day ban or a deletion of your account. Eventually it's going to lead to these companies telling people it's okay to murder you, which is why I'm suing. Okay? All right, so pick up your pamphlets. This is a pamphlet from the Muslim Day Parade that was held in New York City in September of 2012. Why am I showing you a pamphlet from the Muslim Day Parade from several years ago? Well, you see this picture, which is located inside your pamphlet. It says Islam, the future of America. And that's a picture of the White House with the black flag of jihad on top of it. And what's the black flag of jihad? It's the ISIS flag. Okay, this was a pamphlet that was printed by several Muslim organizations, and it was distributed in New York City post 9/11 in the open, in front of elected officials, right? In front of everyday citizens on the side of the street in New York City for everybody to see, and they are saying that Islam is the future of America and putting an ISIS flag on top of the White House. Well, who sponsored this event? Here's an archive page because they have since tried to cover their tracks and delete the page from the Muslim Day Parade. CARE, ICNA, and the Muslim American Society and the Muslim Ummah of North America. I want you guys to pay particular attention to CARE and the Muslim American Society because it's going to have a lot to do with the current, current affairs and the situational landscape here in Minnesota and what you guys are dealing with. This is a real event. This is a real pamphlet. It's not photoshopped, and that's why I printed it out for all of you. Because again, the media is going to say that this is a conspiracy, but this is the evidence right here, right? And if they're going to call me a conspiracy theorist and they're going to shut me down, they're going to do it to you too. So anything comes from this talk today, I want all of you to walk away with new knowledge and the tools you need and the knowledge you need to be able to combat anybody who tries to label you as anti-Muslim, anti-Islam, or a conspiracy theorist or a racist. If you open up the packet, you can see some of the things that are said. Muslim women are not allowed to marry non-Muslim men, right? Although it's permitted for a Muslim man to marry a woman of the people of the book, right? Unless his wife becomes a practicing Muslim, right? Things that really really just aren't compatible with American values. Again, all of this is in your pamphlet. You can read it later. They tell people to join the Muslim Youth of North America, otherwise known as MAYA. Happens to be an unindicted co-conspirator in the Holy Land Foundation trial. So this is a pamphlet, again, that was sponsored by CARE, the Muslim American Society, that is distributed in New York City, and they're telling people to join these organizations that are listed as unindicted co-conspirators in our nation's largest terrorism trial, which is the Holy Land Foundation terrorism trial. Here's a document from the Holy Land Foundation terrorism trial, and you can see it lists several of the unindicted co-conspirators. Again, this is not a conspiracy. Muslim Arab Youth Association is listed there, right? And you see from the pamphlet I just showed you, these organizations are telling Muslims in attendance at this event to join groups that are co-conspirators and tied to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a terrorist organization. Open terrorist recruitment and propaganda on the streets of New York City, post 9/11. Oh, and what do we have here? The Council on American-Islamic Relations yet again. How many of you guys know what CARE is? How many of you have heard of CARE, the Council on American-Islamic Relations? Right? How many of you have seen CARE holding events in Minnesota? How many of you knew that CARE endorsed Ilhan Omar? How many of you knew that CARE gives money to Ilhan Omar? Okay, so you guys know a lot, right? But most Americans are not aware of this, okay? CARE itself has been classified as a designated Islamic terrorist organization in the United Arab Emirates, right? And following the Holy Land Foundation terrorism trial, the FBI actually cut off their ties with CARE because they were found to be tied directly to Hamas and aiding Hamas and the Muslim Brotherhood during the Holy Land Foundation terrorism trial. So it's no surprise that CARE is the #1 sponsor for this Muslim Day Parade, in which they are flying the ISIS flag over the White House. Right? So this may be a lot of information to absorb at once, but we'll take it piece by piece. Right? You have CARE, which describes itself as our nation's largest Muslim advocacy civil rights organization. They are the #1 sponsor for the Muslim Day Parade in New York City, which is showing openly in their pamphlet an ISIS flag flying over the White House. And now you have Ilhan Omar, okay, and you have Rashida Tlaib and other members of Congress who are endorsed by this terrorist organization, which clearly has a goal of making America Islamic, as I just showed you. And you hear the media talking about this? Do you think this is wrong? How many of you want to see an ISIS flag raised over the White House? I don't. Again, this is all known information in terms of CARE and their terrorist ties in the Holy Land Foundation trial, yet somehow Ilhan Omar is allowed to campaign with, be endorsed by, and receive money from CARE. And not only that, but she's currently using CARE and their leaders, Nihad Awad, who's the executive director of CARE, as an advisor. She just sent out a press release a couple weeks ago urging Mike Pompeo to get rid of the U.S. terrorist watch list. And guess who she cited as the authority in her press release? Nihad Awad, the executive director of CARE. Again, this is not a conspiracy theory. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and the U.S. Eastern Texas District Court upheld that there was ample evidence to establish the associations of CARE, ISNA, NATE, and other groups with Hamas. Here's a video from the Muslim Day Parade. People were openly playing.
The Muslim Day Parade happened in New York City over the weekend, and it was a parade calling for the criminalization.
Can you hear that? No.
It's the 27th parade, and it ended, at the end of the street, a full-color press that was handed out along the parade route. 4.5 pages, an article in this called Islam, the Future of America. And the article features the first image shown on this article with the black flag of Islam flying over the White House. And it says Islam is the future of America. The article documents the recent growth of the third wave of Muslims in America. Population growth from 50,000 Muslims to an estimated 6 million in the past 25 years. Mosques have increased from 50 in 1960 to 1,400 today. There's some paragraphs inside the document that are really worth looking at. The subject of relationships between Muslim Americans and non-Muslims.
So you can see, not a conspiracy, okay? It's talked about in the media somewhat. Here's another video from that parade. Again, this is happening on the streets in public in New York City at this parade sponsored by CARE.
The Muslim.
Is this something? Well, it's not playing. Essentially what it is, I'll just tell you. You have one of the key speakers at this event calling for laws that would criminalize blasphemy against Islam. So this guy got up on stage and he was talking about how people who criticize the Prophet Muhammad ought to be prosecuted, and he was urging the United Nations and the US government to pass laws criminalizing blasphemy. So let's just say you're a Christian or you're a Jew and you don't practice Islam, right? Or you have read the Quran and you know that Muhammad was a pedophile. Right? You know that Islam is not a religion of peace. You know that over 90,000 Christians are slaughtered every single year at the hands of Muslims. Right? You know that there's more Jew hatred in the Quran than Hitler's Mein Kampf. Right? If you say any of these things or you dare to disrespect the Prophet, they're calling for you to be punished. And in some Islamic countries where Sharia law is law of the land, the punishment for blasphemy is death. And these people are calling for this openly on the streets of New York City. And their number one sponsor is CARE, which is currently funding Ilhan Omar and her re-election campaign. Oh, and who's that? That guy, that's Nihad Awad. The guy sitting there, he's wearing the little satchel that says Grand Marshal. Yeah, he was the Grand Marshal for this Muslim Day parade. And he's the head of CARE. Again, not a conspiracy. Hope those reporters are here. Here's another screenshot from a video from a rally that took place in Florida where I lived several years ago. A group of pro-Hamas individuals, Muslims, gathered and they were protesting against Israel on the streets of Miami, Florida. And they were chanting, "We are Hamas, we are jihad." And again, look at CARE as the sponsor. We are Hamas, we are jihad. Hamas is recognized as a designated Islamic terrorist organization by our United States State Department. Jihad is defined as warfare against non-Muslims. Oh, and this is CARE sponsoring this event. Again, these are the people who are directly coordinating with Ilhan Omar, funding her campaign, and really funding a lot of the Islamic campaigns and movements that are taking place here in America right now. So it's very important for all of you to familiarize yourself with them. CARE often holds a lot of banquets, and you may have seen one of their banquets in the news recently because it was held in Woodland Hills, California, and their keynote speaker was Ilhan Omar. And during this talk at CARE, which was a fundraiser, she said something along the lines of, CARE was founded after 9/11 because some people did something. You know, you all probably heard that clip in which she trivialized 9/11 and the horrors of nearly 3,000 Americans being slaughtered by Muslims, right? The worst act of terror on US soil ever. And again, this is not a conspiracy. Here is the banquet flyer. And you can see this is very real. This is happening in America. This is happening in Minnesota. Again, this is the document. You know, I didn't make this document up. It is a real document. For any members of the media who may be in the audience, I'd be happy to send you this document as well so that you can see it scanned. I also photocopied a copy for everybody in the audience, but this is very real, right? So I'm not sure why the local media here and the mainstream media has called this a conspiracy, right? They're now saying President Trump is a conspiracy theorist. I'm sure you saw that President Trump said that Ilhan Omar married her brother. It seems like everything which is critical of Islam or factual about Islam is a conspiracy in this country, right? And I'm here to tell you it's not. How many of you know who this individual is sitting next to Ilhan Omar? I'll call on someone in the audience, or just shout it. Who is it? What do you guys know about this guy? Just start, you can just shout it out in the audience. It's fine. Right. Yeah, so some of the things I heard, he wants to implement Sharia, wants to pretty much implement an Islamic caliphate all throughout Turkey. He is, you know, very tied in with the Muslim Brotherhood, all of which is correct. Well, this is a picture that was taken. Ilhan Omar had a closed-door meeting with Erdogan. And this is prior to her getting elected to U.S. Congress. And as you know, right, we're having a lot of issues with Turkey right now due to a lot of the sanctions on Iran and the fact that Turkey doesn't exactly want to cooperate with the United States regarding those sanctions, and they don't seem to view the Iranians as a threat and an enemy to the United States like we do. And yet here she is, right? Here is Ilhan Omar having a closed-door meeting with Erdogan, who is closely tied in with the Muslim Brotherhood. And again, that's what CARE is, right? Essentially what CARE is Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas in America. July 2017. It was an honor to host the Turkish Consul General Umut Akar for lunch yesterday and have him join me for a tour. This is all prior to her being elected as a member of Congress. Now you have to ask yourself, right? Why is the president of Turkey and why are the Turkish Consul Generals and so many high-profile Muslim Brotherhood officials in Turkey wanting to have closed-door meetings with Ilhan Omar prior to her being an elected member of Congress? Seems kind of weird, right? I mean, when I came to Minnesota, nobody knew who Ilhan Omar was. She had about 18,000 followers on Twitter. Now she has about 1 million. No one knew who she was. And even now, it's only now that the story about her marrying her brother is getting so much press in the media that people are talking about this, right? But many of us here today were warning about Ilhan Omar prior to the election because we knew what a disaster she was going to be. We knew that she had ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. We knew that she was an agent for CARE and the Muslim Brotherhood. And now we're experiencing this disaster on a daily basis, it seems, right? Just when we think this woman can't get any worse than she already is, every other day, right? Stories about her anti-Jewish comments, anti-Christian comments, saying that 9/11 didn't matter, right? Yesterday or early this morning, she called for a BDS resolution, right? I mean, it's out of control. Every day, it's something new with this woman, but there were warning signs. And the worst thing about it is she's serving on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Turkey is not our friend, right? The United States State Department has Turkey listed as a level 3 travel advisory, which, you know, when you have a level 4 travel advisory, that's the most severe advisory you can have. It's 3 out of 4. Warning people, Americans, you know, you probably don't want to go to Turkey. It's not really friendly. They don't like Americans over there. There's a lot of terrorist activity. So if our State Department, you know, is telling this to Americans, why is Ilhan Omar having closed-door meetings with some of the most hostile Turkish leaders? Right? These are questions and things that the mainstream media should be talking about every night. These are things that Nancy Pelosi, as Speaker of the House, has a responsibility to be bringing up, but they're not. And as every day passes and this issue is not addressed, who knows what kind of information she is giving to our enemies in the Muslim Brotherhood or Hamas or even ISIS, right? We're talking about a woman who uses her political power to advocate for 9 men in Minnesota who were arrested for trying to join ISIS overseas to murder Americans. What kind of woman, what kind of politician, what type of American, decent human being in general, would advocate for men who tried to join ISIS overseas to kill and murder Americans to have a lenient sentence? This is a very serious issue. I mean, I hope you know, and I don't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but I hope you know how bad it is in Minnesota for the people here, right? And unfortunately, you know, you can't, I'd like to say that you guys could depend on your Republican Party here, but from what I saw last year when I was here on the ground, the Republican Party wants to work with the Somali community. The Republican Party in Minnesota is more afraid of offending Muslims, are more afraid of the left-wing media that smeared me as a radical conspiracy theorist doing hit pieces on them than they are about saying enough is enough, we are not going to stand for Islamic infiltration in Minnesota any longer, enough is enough, it's time to go. The Republican Party of Minnesota has failed you. And I'm sure we're all Republicans here. I voted for President Trump, I've been a lifelong Republican. But they need stronger leadership. You know, I was on the ground here in Minnesota reporting, aiding the Republican Party, trying to feed them the information that I was exposing through my investigations. And you want to know, they told their campaign workers and their staff to disavow me. They told the officials in their campaigns to not talk to me, to not have meetings with me, because they were scared of what the mainstream media would say about them, because they were scared of the Council on American Islamic Relations, a designated Islamic terrorist organization, saying that they were anti-Muslim. Since when do Americans have any concern about what members of a terrorist organization have to say? Why is the Republican Party of Minnesota bending over backwards for a terrorist organization? Right? I mean, the people in Minnesota need to hold the Republican Party accountable here, because this is not going to change until you have people who wake up and realize it's either get completely taken over and infiltrated and subverted by this Islamic invasion that is happening in the state of Minnesota. And yes, I'm using the word invasion because it is an invasion. It is an invasion, whether people want to say it or not. Minnesota has been invaded, and it will continue to be invaded until you guys have strong leaders in the Republican Party here who are going to put their feet down and put an end to it. That's right. But then again, look what happens to people who speak up. Look at what's happening in this country, the United States of America, while President Donald Trump is president. I spoke up, Marnie spoke up, Michelle spoke up, a lot of you spoke up. But I'm now banned on every single social media platform. The bank is now trying to shut my account down. Right? And so I'm telling the Republican Party here in Minnesota, I'm telling the people of Minnesota it's time to wake up and speak up. But what's happening is everybody who is speaking up is being shut down. They're being censored. They're being threatened. They're being silenced. Right? There were going to be a lot more people here tonight, but I'm told a lot of people were nervous that Antifa was going to show up because this local paper of yours and the Council on American Islamic Relations started posting about it. And people got scared. And you can't really blame people at the end of the day when you don't have strong leadership in a state and you have these terrorist organizations targeting people for simply expressing themselves and using the rights bestowed to them in the United States Constitution. It's a crisis in this country. And it's not just happening in Minnesota. And it needs to be addressed. And personally, I do believe that big tech social media censorship is the #1 campaign issue, because if all of us are silenced, if all of us are going to be deplatformed and shut down by Facebook, by Twitter, by PayPal, by Chase Bank, by MasterCard, right? What's next? When are they going to turn your phone off? When are they going to turn your electric off? Are we going to have a time in this country where if you speak up and the head of the water company is not a Trump supporter or they're not a conservative, they're going to shut your water off? And it may sound crazy, it may sound like a conspiracy, but if you told me 10 years ago that I would wake up one morning and my online access to my bank account would be shut down because I'm a conservative journalist, I would have told you were crazy. But here we are in America in 2019. Again, just more pictures of Turkish officials saying that they hosted Ilhan Omar in residence closed-door meetings. Why is Ilhan Omar having closed-door meetings with enemies of America? Let's talk about the media. Not only is the media aiding and abetting these big tech social media companies, right? They are colluding directly with the big tech social media companies to silence and censor people who criticize left-wing politicians or people who are conservative, right? Here's an article that was published by the Huffington Post that said, Turkey has proved it is no longer a friend to the United States. Well, they published this article when they were trying to go after General Flynn. They were trying to publish this as a way to discredit General Flynn and call for General Flynn to be indicted and thrown in jail. Well, if you search on the internet, this article is no longer there, right? Huffington Post continues to write puff pieces about Ilhan Omar. They continue to talk about how Ilhan Omar is an icon, how she's a hero. How, oh my God, we gotta love this woman. She wears a hijab. She's so inspirational. I don't find that to be inspirational. I don't know about you, but I don't find Islam to be anywhat inspirational. But this article has conveniently been deleted, all right? And you have to wonder, right? How can the American people trust the news? How can the American people get information and know what is going on in their country when you have media publications and news organizations like CNN, like Huffington Post, like New York Times, like Washington Post, they're all guilty of it, covering up, right? So what? So when it's convenient for you regarding General Flynn, you're going to say that Turkey's not our friend, but then when Ilhan Omar is having closed-door meetings with the president of Turkey, they're our friend, you're just going to delete news? I mean, there's a war on the American people, and President Trump is not wrong when he says that the media truly is the enemy of the people. Here's, Turkish media. I've been monitoring the media headlines that come out in Turkey and Iran lately, and it seems that every single day the state media agencies in Iran and Turkey are publishing pieces about Ilhan Omar in which they say that she is a martyr for Islam, right? Word for word, I kid you not. They say things like she is a martyr for Islam in the halls of Congress, and that she's a friend to Islam and not a friend to the Jews. And of course, when you're living in an Islamic caliphate where Sharia law is the law of the land, where there is no religious tolerance, where if you are a Christian or a Jew, you either convert or you pay the jizya or you're killed, right? Of course they're going to say this, right? You think we probably shouldn't be having a woman serve on the Foreign Affairs Committee in Congress or even be admitted to Congress when our enemies and the people who are chanting death to America and lighting the American flag and the Israeli flag